5 months. That's how long this £460,000 farce has dragged on. 5 months of government business being overshadowed by the minutiae of work gatherings 2 years ago. 5 months of the pathetic and craven MSM telling you that the Prime Minister receiving a birthday cake that was never removed from the Tupperware container in his office, which doubles as his home, by staff members, is a more important story than a cost of living crisis. 5 months of this embarrassing hysteria that has shamed the British media.
The Prime Minister set the law. The Prime Minister broke the law. The Prime Minister misled Parliament. Where's his honour?
This massively piles the pressure on the Prime Minister.
I think Tory MPs should be considering very carefully now Boris Johnson's future.
At what point is someone like you going to say enough is enough?
At all times, did you always think in every single event you were not breaking the rules? But you don't believe the PM should resign over this. Why not?
But you will now be, I think, the first Prime Minister to be investigated for potentially misleading the Houses of Parliament. Very serious, and that could, you would agree, lead to your resignation.
Is there any circumstance in which you would look at those reports and go, OK, fair enough, I'll quit?
Well, today, it all came crashing down for that lot. For Sly News party gals Kay Burley and Beth Rigby, who broke the rules themselves. For the Daily Mirror's political editor Pippa Crerar, who disingenuously pretended Partygate was the equivalent of Watergate. For that impartial political editor Robert Peston, who laughably claimed that Boris Johnson remaining Prime Minister after Partygate could see the UK looking like a, quote, elected dictatorship. For the Boris-hating, Brexit-hating so-called journalists at the BBC, Channel 4 and ITV News, it all ended with a whimper. Despite the 5 months of hysteria, there would be a solitary fixed penalty notice for the PM, his wife and his Chancellor for the most pathetic of reasons. That presentation of a birthday cake between meetings at Downing Street. And my God, the media are devastated today. They could barely hide their disappointment during the coverage of the announcement from the Met Police, who botched this non-investigation from the start.
But because the Prime Minister is not facing any more fines, it does, and that's a surprise even, I think, to some senior officials.
You say, why did the Prime Minister get fined for his birthday party, for example, but not the Bring Your Own Booze party in Number 10, where over 100 people were invited? The second thing, though, is why then were junior staff fined for some of those events and the Prime Minister himself was not? And the Met says, no, they've applied the rules fairly. I'm not sure if he'll feel fair, though, to someone who maybe has been fined during the pandemic for behaviour that is not even on the scale of what happened in Number 10.
It's not quite over yet. There is still a parliamentary inquiry to come and the full report by a senior civil servant.
Hilariously, slippery Keir Starmer still has to continue with his farcical claim that the Prime Minister should resign for accepting a birthday cake, even though we all know he committed a far worse lockdown crime by downing booze and chomping on curry in what's now known as Beergate, also being investigated by the police. I'd actually love to know how he kept a straight face when making this call to GBNews political editor Darren McCaffrey earlier.
Are you still calling for the Prime Minister to resign? We've got the results now of the Met investigation.
My view of the Prime Minister hasn't changed. Of course, after an investigation that shows 120+ breaches of the law in Downing Street, of course he should resign. He's responsible for the culture.
5 months of that. I can't defend any of it. I can't defend the initial rule-breaking by those at Number 10 Downing Street who were caging us indoors for months on end. I can't defend the biased media coverage. I can't defend the highly politicised investigation by the Met. I certainly can't defend the wasted £450,000 on the resource of 12 officers who should be solving crime in failed Sadiq Khan's lawless London rather than focusing on this farce. But there is one positive to emerge from this political train wreck. By far, the best thing about Partygate and Beergate is that if our so-called leaders ever think of stealing our freedoms, our civil liberties and our right to choose how we live again, we will all do one thing: tell them to go to hell. They were never scared. the lockdowns never worked. And never forget that, because that's what really matters.